Number 12. The Borealepelta, the Suncore Nodosaur. Leave a steak on your kitchen counter. In a few days, it's a rancid, maggot-infested nightmare. In a month, it's liquid. The textbook says soft tissue degradation is an absolute thermodynamic law. So imagine the shock of a Canadian miner in 2011 operating a heavy excavator in Alberta when his bucket crunches into rock and uncovers the face of a 3,000-pound mythical beast staring back. He expects scattered dusty bones. Instead, he has unearthed the creature wearing its original skin and armor, looking exactly like a sleeping dragon. This is the Borealepelta, a supposedly 110-million-year-old nodosaur, and it is the ultimate biological paradox. Mainstream science dictates that cellular degradation begins within hours of death, but this dinosaur mummy defies the textbook. It still possesses its intricate keratin armor, highly textured skin, and even the fossilized mass of its last leafy meal in its stomach. To achieve this, it required a thermodynamic and geological miracle. It was instantaneously entombed by a catastrophic massive mud flood. The 3,000-pound beast was buried so deeply and so violently that oxygen was completely locked out before aerobic bacteria could even begin the rotting process. It is a perfect three-dimensional snapshot of a heavily armored tank of a dinosaur, preserved with a level of fidelity that leaves forensic biologists scratching their heads. The official explanation is a perfectly timed underwater landslide that entombed the creature like shrink wrap, but the sheer mathematical improbability of such instantaneous, flawless burial challenges everything we know about natural decay rates. The soft tissue paradox here is undeniable. And if you think this sleeping dragon is a glitch in the geological matrix, wait until you hear what scientists found hiding inside the indestructible bone of the tyrant lizard king. Number 11. Mary Schweitzer's T-Rex blood. You were a paleobiologist staring into the lens of a microscope, expecting to see nothing but cold, dead, fossilized minerals. Instead, your jaw drops. Floating in the petri dish is something bouncy, squishy, and terrifyingly fresh. It looks like a medical sample taken from a patient just hours ago in a modern hospital, but the patient has been dead for supposedly 68 million years. You are staring at the impossible, and you know this single discovery will make you the most hated scientist in your field. Dr. Mary Schweitzer cracked open the massive femur of a Tyrannosaurus rex recovered from the Hell Creek Formation. When she dissolved the mineral matrix, she didn't find solid rock. She found stretchy, flexible blood vessels and perfectly intact red blood cells. Mainstream biology and basic thermodynamics dictate that soft tissue and mitochondrial DNA cannot survive past 1 million years under any conditions. Background radiation alone would slice the molecular bonds to ribbons. Yet here was a T-Rex with tissue so pliable it snapped back when stretched with tweezers. The textbook says this is a biological impossibility. The cellular degradation clock should have hit zero tens of millions of years ago, but this visceral, squishy evidence completely shatters the timeline of fossilization. Panicked academics scrambled to explain this away, suggesting bacterial biofilms merely mimicked the blood vessels. But subsequent testing confirmed it. This was genuine dinosaur collagen and heme. It is the ultimate anomaly, suggesting the timeline of decay is fundamentally flawed. And if microscopic blood cells can survive millions of years, what about something as fragile and delicate as a golden feather? Number 10. The 99-million-year-old amber dinosaur tail. Imagine wandering through a bustling, dusty market in Myanmar. You stop at a jeweler's stall, eyeing a piece of polished amber destined to become a gaudy pendant. But trapped inside the golden resin isn't a mosquito or a common leaf. It is a fuzzy, alien-looking appendage. You lean in closer, and a chill runs down your spine as you realize you're looking at the severed tail of a real-life monster, perfectly preserved like a horrific piece of prehistoric candy. This isn't a prop from a sci-fi movie. It's a 99-million-year-old piece of a feathered theropod dinosaur. The chunk of amber contains 8 articulated vertebrae, but the bones are just the beginning. The resin perfectly encapsulated the creature's soft tissue, traces of its liquid blood chemistry, and flawless three-dimensional feathers. It definitively proves that many dinosaurs were not scaly green reptiles, but terrifying giant birds. The visceral reality of the specimen is staggering. The amber acted as a hermetic seal, locking out oxygen and halting the thermodynamic breakdown of delicate organic structures. Mainstream science struggles to explain how complex proteins and feather barbs resisted complete molecular disintegration over nearly 100 million years. The physical evidence is so pristine, it looks like the creature died yesterday. The resin's antibacterial properties are the academic excuse for this miraculous preservation. But even in a sterile vacuum, biological material eventually succumbs to the ravages of deep time and entropy. It's a golden time capsule that mocks the very concept of slow fossilization. But if a trapped tail changes our view of dinosaurs, an entire battlefield frozen in time will completely rewrite prehistoric physics. Number 9. The Fighting Dinosaurs, Mongolia. Picture a desolate stretch of the Gobi Desert. 2 ancient apex predators are locked in a vicious, bloody deathmatch. One sinks its razor-sharp sickle claw into the other's neck. The victim bites down so hard on its attacker's arm that bones audibly crack. It is a chaotic frenzy of shrieks and tearing flesh. Suddenly, the sky goes dark. Within a fraction of a second, the fight is over. Not because one won, but because the earth swallowed them both alive. Discovered in Mongolia, the Fighting Dinosaurs fossil features a velociraptor and a protoceratops permanently entombed in mortal combat. This defies every known rule of taphonomy, the study of how organisms decay. Normally, scavengers in the elements scatter bones within weeks. For these 2 creatures to be perfectly preserved, still gripping each other's throats, requires an astonishingly violent and instantaneous burial. They were frozen by a collapsing sand dune or a massive mudslide. We're talking about thousands of pounds of sediment moving at over 50 miles per hour, suffocating them before they could even let go. They have been locked in this terrifying action pose for an alleged 80 million years. The textbook says fossil preservation requires slow, steady sedimentation. The physical reality of these fighting dinosaurs screams of a sudden, catastrophic anomaly. The official story is a sudden dune collapse in a heavy rainstorm, but to capture the kinetic energy of a fight to the death without scattering the skeletons requires an astonishingly violent and instantaneous burial. It's a snapshot of sudden violence. But capturing a fight is one thing. Capturing the exact moment a sea monster was digesting its dinner is a chemical glitch of epic proportions. Number 8. Eric, the opalized sea monster, and his last supper. Deep within the dark, dusty opal mines of Coober Australia, a miner's pickaxe strikes a hard surface, sending a shower of rainbow-colored sparks into the dim light. He carefully brushes away the dirt, expecting to find a valuable gemstone. Instead, he uncovers a gleaming, shimmering rib cage. It is the skeleton of a prehistoric beast, completely transformed into solid, glowing opal. It is the most beautiful, expensive corpse on the planet. Meet Eric, a deadly marine reptile known as a pliosaur. But Eric isn't made of bone. A bizarre chemical glitch replaced his entire skeleton with precious hydrated silica, opal. While a gemstone skeleton is visually stunning, the true impossibility lies deep within his shimmering ribcage, his last supper. Entombed perfectly inside Eric are the tiny opalized scales and bones of the fish he had just swallowed. This is a massive thermodynamic impossibility. Digestive acids in a predator's stomach are highly corrosive and destroy fish scales in a matter of hours. For a half-digested meal to fossilize, let alone opalize, Eric had to be killed, buried, and subjected to a catastrophic chemical petrification process almost instantaneously.
Slow geological fossilization over millions of years would mean the stomach acids would have dissolved the fish long before the minerals set in. Geologists claim a highly specific silica-rich alkaline environment slowly replaced his bones over millennia. But that doesn't explain the perfectly preserved, half-digested fish. The visceral truth is that Eric was flash-petrified in a catastrophic instant. A gemstone monster with its last meal frozen inside is mind-bending. But what if I told you we can literally see the true colors of these ancient beasts? Number 7. The Scipionyx, the color reveal. You are cracking open a slab of Italian limestone. You expect to find the faint, chalky outline of a skeleton. Instead, you are confronted with something that looks like fresh roadkill. The fossil is so absurdly well preserved that it hasn't just retained its bones, it has left behind a highly detailed, dark stain of its internal organs. You can literally trace the path of its squishy intestines. You shouldn't be seeing this. You are looking at biology that flat out refused to die. This is the Scipionyx, a tiny theropod dinosaur found so flawlessly preserved that scientists identified its fossilized intestines, liver, and even melanosomes, actual pigment cells. Because of this visceral soft tissue anomaly, we literally know what color its internal organs were. Mainstream biologists immediately panicked. The textbook says complex organic molecules decompose rapidly. To stop cellular degradation, they scrambled to invent a theory that iron from the creature's own blood preserved the tissue like formaldehyde, supposedly keeping these organs intact for 113 million years. However, calculating the chemical kinetics proves that iron alone cannot halt the thermodynamic breakdown of proteins over deep time. It merely slows it down. Here's the reality check. Alternative researchers argue that this iron preservation theory is mathematically impossible, proving the dinosaur must have died only a few thousand years ago. Historians say the millions of years timeline is absolute, but alternative researchers say the soft tissue proves it's a fake timeline. Which tribe are you in? Tell me below in the comments. And if perfectly preserved guts make you question the narrative, a dinosaur mummy with its entire skin envelope will absolutely break your brain.
Number 6. Dakota the Edmontosaurus. Imagine walking through the barren badlands of North Dakota. You stumble upon a massive stony lump protruding from the earth. As you brush away the dust, you realize you aren't looking at a femur or a rib. You are looking at a thick patch of scaly reptilian skin. It isn't an imprint. It's the actual petrified hide of a monstrous beast wrapping a three-dimensional body. You have just found a dinosaur mummy. Dubbed Dakota, this Edmontosaurus is a taphonomic miracle. The entire skin envelope of this 3-ton creature is intact, wrapping perfectly around its fossilized muscles and tendons. Mainstream science says skin and muscle are the first things to rot, eaten by maggots and bacteria within days. But Dakota defies the biological clock. Because the actual muscle mass was so perfectly preserved in 3 dimensions, biomechanical engineers were able to calculate its exact running speed, a blistering 45 kilometers per hour. This completely rewrote our understanding of prehistoric physics and predator-prey dynamics. Dakota wasn't a sluggish, swamp-dwelling reptile. It was a heavily muscled, highly athletic survivor. For this skin and muscle to fossilize before rotting, the beast had to be buried rapidly in a highly specific mineral-rich riverbed. But the sheer perfection of the mummification points to a catastrophic instant entombment that completely locked out the agents of decay. The soft tissue paradox strikes again. Yet while mummified muscle is incredible, finding the most delicate organ in the body preserved in stone borders on the supernatural. Number 5. The fossilized dinosaur brain, Sussex, England. A fossil hunter is walking along the gloomy, muddy beaches of Sussex, England. He picks up a smooth brown pebble that looks entirely unremarkable. Most people would skip it across the water, but this hunter notices a strange, wrinkly texture on its surface. He takes it to a lab, puts it under an electron microscope, and makes a discovery so visceral and disturbing it sends shockwaves through the scientific community. He is holding a petrified brain. Brain matter is the softest, most fragile tissue in a vertebrate's body. Upon death, highly corrosive enzymes within the brain immediately begin to digest it. It literally liquefies into sludge within hours. Yet researchers found a perfectly preserved, petrified dinosaur brain belonging to an iguanodontian. You can actually see the meninges, the tough outer protective layers of the brain, and the intricate web of tiny blood vessels perfectly mineralized. The thermodynamics and physics required to pickle and fossilize a brain before it melts are so microscopically precise they defy all natural decay rates. The creature's head had to be submerged in highly acidic, oxygen-free water almost immediately upon death, acting as a prehistoric pickling jar. The minerals had to replace the soft tissue at a speed faster than the brain's own auto-digestion. Mainstream academia claims it was a bizarre 1 in a billion bog burial. But the chemical velocity required to petrify liquid brain matter before it rots completely contradicts the slow, gradual process of textbook fossilization. It is a biological anomaly of the highest order. But if physical evidence breaks our understanding of biology, what happens when human artifacts break our understanding of history altogether?
Number 4. The Ica Stones, Peru. A torrential flood tears through the Ica Desert in Peru, washing away the topsoil and revealing a hidden ancient cave. Inside, locals find a massive library, but it contains no books. Instead, it holds thousands of smooth, heavy andesite stones covered in intricate, impossible carvings. You pick one up, wipe off the mud, and see a perfect engraving of a human figure. But the human isn't hunting a mammoth. He is engaged in brutal combat with a Triceratops. The Ica stones are a collection of over 15,000 engraved rocks depicting a totally impossible reality. They show highly accurate medical depictions of extinct dinosaurs like Brontosaurus and Stegosaurus interacting intimately with human beings. The textbook says dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years before humans even existed. The biological and chronological disconnect is massive. Yet the engravings correctly depict the dermal spines of a diplodocus, a detail paleontologists only discovered in the 1990s. How could primitive artists know biological specifics that modern science just uncovered? The physical stones themselves are dense volcanic andesite. To carve them requires incredible force, yet the lines are extremely precise. Even more baffling, independent laboratory analysis of the patina, the oxidation layer in the grooves of the carvings, indicates they have been exposed to the elements for thousands of years. The Smithsonian entirely dismisses them as modern fakes created by local farmers wanting to sell trinkets to tourists. But the ancient oxidation layer and the biologically accurate dermal spines tell a different story. Were dinosaurs surviving deep in the Amazon alongside humans? Or is this the greatest, most elaborate hoax in history? Which side are you on? Tell me below. Because the next anomaly isn't a carving, it's a visceral, terrifying snapshot of mass extinction. Number 3. The Rhino Pompei, Ashfall Fossil Beds, Nebraska. It is a calm, sunny day on the prehistoric plains of Nebraska. A herd of ancient rhinos is peacefully grazing around a watering hole. Suddenly, the sky turns a bruised purple. A deafening roar echoes from 1,000 miles away. Then it begins to snow. But it isn't snow. It is blinding, choking, razor-sharp volcanic glass. Within minutes, the entire herd is suffocating, choking on the toxic sky, unable to escape the inescapable blanket of death. This is the Ashfall Fossil Beds, known as the Rhino Pompei. A massive supervolcano erupted in what is now Idaho, dropping a devastating 2-foot-thick blanket of volcanic ash over Nebraska. Paleontologists uncovered hundreds of prehistoric rhinos called Ichthyosaurus, buried entirely intact. The level of preservation is deeply visceral and terrifying. These animals weren't scavenged or scattered. The unborn calves are still preserved perfectly inside their mother's wombs. Even more horrifying, the adult rhinos still have their very last bites of grass preserved between their fossilized teeth. The textbook says fossilization is a slow accumulation of sediment over millennia. This physical evidence proves the exact opposite, a snapshot of mass agonizing death that happened in mere minutes. The extreme heat and rapid burial cooked the bacteria, stopping cellular degradation instantly. Paleontologists acknowledge the volcanic catastrophe, but the sheer volume of perfectly intact skeletons with their final meals in their mouths highlights how catastrophic and rapid burial often is the only true way fossils form. It's a monument to instantaneous destruction. But if choking on ash is a terrible way to die, imagine being frozen in stone in the very moment you're bringing new life into the world.
Number 2. The Ichthyosaur birth. Deep within the dark, ancient ocean, a massive marine predator is in extreme distress. She is an ichthyosaur, a dolphin-like reptile, and she is in the middle of giving birth. The tiny tail of her newborn calf begins to emerge into the cold water. It is a moment of prehistoric creation. But before the baby can take its first breath, a colossal underwater avalanche of deadly mud violently crashes into them, erasing them from the world of the living. This incredible fossil captures an ichthyosaur mother frozen perfectly in stone while actively giving birth. The baby is literally halfway out of the birth canal. Biological reality dictates that the birthing process takes a matter of minutes to, at most, a few hours. This fossil proves unequivocally that the burial event was instantaneous. A slow accumulation of silt over thousands of years, the textbook definition of fossilization, is a thermodynamic and biological impossibility here. If it took even a few days to be buried, scavengers would have torn the mother and the vulnerable calf to shreds, or natural decomposition would have separated the bones. Instead, an apocalyptic wall of underwater sediment hit them with such speed and immense pressure that it froze time in a matter of seconds, locking out oxygen and halting the decay process right in the middle of a contraction. Mainstream science explains this away as anoxic environment combined with a rapid turbidity current. But capturing a split-second biological event in solid rock exposes the violent, catastrophic nature of true fossilization. It demands a fast-tracked timeline. And if you think a flash-frozen birth is a glitch in the timeline, our final anomaly completely obliterates the fundamental dating system of modern science itself. Number 1. The 33,000-year-old Triceratops horn, the C14 glitch. You are a rogue paleobiologist. You just dug a massive, beautiful Triceratops horn out of the dirt in Montana. You crack it open, and against all odds, you find soft, stretchy tissue inside. You know the scientific community will try to explain it away with excuses about biofilms, so you decide to do the unthinkable. You do the one thing mainstream academics absolutely forbid you to do with dinosaur bones. You put it in a box, ship it to a lab, and ask them for a carbon-14 date. This is the ultimate glitch in the matrix. In 2012, paleobiologist Mark Armitage discovered flexible soft tissue inside a massive Triceratops horn. But by submitting the unmineralized tissue for carbon-14 dating, he crossed a forbidden line. The textbook firmly dictates that C14 has a highly specific short half-life of 5,730 years. It mathematically cannot exist in any biological material older than 100,000 years. If dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago, a C14 test should yield absolutely zero radioactive carbon. The results? The independent laboratory dated the Triceratops tissue at exactly 33,570 years old. This thermodynamic and radiometric proof aligns the dinosaur directly with the era of Neanderthals and ancient humans. It completely destroys the 65 million-year timeline of mainstream science.
The physical evidence, the measurable C14 isotopes, directly contradicts the accepted geological column. Mainstream academia reacted brutally, firing Armitage and claiming the sample must have been contaminated by groundwater or modern bacteria. But the C14 was integrated into the dinosaur's own bone collagen. This isn't just a biological anomaly, it's a radiological paradox that suggests everything we know about prehistoric timelines might be a carefully constructed lie. The soft tissue paradox is real, and it's rewriting history, leaving us to question what other impossible biology is waiting to thaw out of the ice. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to join the Oddly Explained community. We have a lot more secrets to uncover, and you won't want to miss what we expose next. Stay sharp and stay curious.